today we're continuing our journey around the color wheel, just testing out how different primary colors mix with other primary colors. So today I'm testing out two warm yellows. I've chosen cadmium yellow medium hue and putting it up against cadmium-free yellow deep. I've been using cadmium yellow medium hue for a little while now, but I'm taking a class and they recommended buying the yellow deep. So I'm going to compare the two against each other. So the cadmium yellow medium is golden and the cad-free yellow deep is Liquitex. I like the Liquitex, just as an aside, I like the Liquitex packaging because I find that the lids for golden and some of the other brands can be really tricky to get off, but I don't really have that issue with Liquitex. So that's just an extra little aside that I think gives Liquitex a point, even though I use a lot of golden. I also use a pair of pliers because I can't get into my tubes of paint any other way. So today I will compare these two. I will mix it with Queen Magenta and Cad Red, Ultramarine Blue and Phthalo Blue Green shade, and Burnt Sienna. And once I do a mix of each of these with the two different yellows, I will also do a mix with a bit of titanium white just so you can see a bit of the undertones. Sometimes when you do a mix of the pure colors, it gets a bit dark and it can be hard to tell what you're really dealing with. One other thing to note is, so we have cad yellow medium hue. Hue means it is not the original pigment. So golden is using some other type of pigment or mix of pigments to mimic the original cadmium, because there are people who are concerned about cadmium toxicity. I personally, if there's no good reason to have real cadmium in my paint palette, I am slowly using up cadmiums, cobalts, things like that, and probably will generally go with cad-free versions unless there's a reason why. So like this is a real cad red, but over time I'll finish using this up and I probably will replace it with something else. And of course Liquitex, it says right there, is cadmium-free. So this is their version of the hue. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. And we'll get started with the mixing. So if you've seen some of my other mixing videos in the series, it's the familiar colors, familiar layout that I do. So I'll do a few mixes just of each of the yellows with white, just so we can see some of the shades you can create, or various values that you can create, and then we'll get into the actual mixing with the colors. So first up, cadmium yellow medium hue. So this is the pure color. And add a bit of white. Slowly make it paler. Now yellows just in general are quite pale, which can make them a little bit frustrating to work with, but yellows are they're obviously a primary color, so they're an important part of our palette. Okay, so there is a few of the values that you can get from cadmium yellow medium hue. And these are heavy bodied, and I applied it quite thickly so you can see see a lot of the brush marks. Okay, now let's compare it to the cad-free yellow deep. Of course, it's Liquitex. It's as the name implies, yellow deep. It's a darker value than the medium. So let's start adding some white into that. And there you go. There's a few different values that you can get out of the cad-free yellow deep. And I just mix these quite quickly. I'm not aiming to, mimic exactly the same value in each. It's just a quick sample so you can start to see some of the colors that, or some of the values that the paint has. Okay, so first up we'll do Quin Magenta. This is Quin Magenta mixed with a fair amount of the Cad Yellow medium hue. So it's definitely leaning towards the yellow. And then we'll add some white. Maybe just a little more white. Probably was too much, but there you go. Gives you an idea of how that mixes. And I'll show you with a bit more Quin Magenta, so that's leaning pretty heavily towards Quin Magenta and less towards the yellow. And do a quick mix with a bit of white in with that. Maybe just a little more white. There you go. Now let's move over to the cadmium red with the same yellow, the cadmium medium or cad yellow medium hue. So here it is with a lot of the yellow. And let's mix a fair amount of white into that. There you go. Now, one thing with the Cad Red is it's so powerful. So it took a lot of yellow to make a pale version of that Cad Red. Now here is Cad Red and Cad Yellow medium hue with a lot of the Cad Red in. So it leans quite heavily towards Cadmium Red. And here's some white, just a lighter value of it. Now let's move on to the ultramarine blue. So here's the ultramarine with a lot of the yellow in it. So nice yellowy green. And add some white. There you go. And here it is with a lot of the ultramarine, makes it nice, really nice dark green. Whoops. And now let's add some white to that. Now for the phthalo blue. Here it is with a lot of the yellow in it. It's nice bright color. And there it is with some white. And here's the same phthalo blue green mixed with Cad Yellow medium hue with a lot, whoops. Well, I just got a lot of dirty water from my paintbrush on. Let me just try and clean that up a little. Well, smeared the ink a little bit from the writing, but that's okay. Okay, now I'm just going to add a little bit of white, just so you can get an idea of some of the other colors you can create. And burnt sienna. Mixed with a lot of the yellow, add a little white. And one last mix of the medium hue, mixed with a fair amount of burnt sienna. And just add some more white, make it a lower value or paler value. There you go. Those are the colors, or at least a sampling of the colors that you can mix with cadmium yellow medium hue. Now let's head back over to the Cad-free Yellow Deep. So mixed with the Quin Magenta, here it is with a lot of the yellow. And we'll just get a little white. And here it is with a lot of the Quin Magenta. I think that's a really nice color of red. And we'll add some yellow or some white to that. Now for the cadmium red. So here it is mixed with a lot of the yellow. And a little bit of white added to that to bring down the value. And with a lot of the red. Add white to that. Definitely more of an orangey pale color there than when compared to that Quin Magenta. Comparing those two. Okay, now ultramarine blue. So here is it with the Cad-free Yellow Deep mixed with just a little bit of the ultramarine blue. There it is with some white. And there's a lot of the blue. Again, really, really nice deep green. And with some white. And you can see just how kind of grayed out that green is when you add some white to it. So that's quite nice. Now the phthalo blue. There it is with a lot of the yellow deep. And we'll add some white to that. And there it is with a lot of the phthalo green. Just knock down the value a bit with some white. Almost like a tropical green there when compared to the ultramarine blue. Now for the last color mixes. So we have the burnt sienna with a lot of the yellow deep. Whoops, get some clean white to mix there. And the burnt sienna and yellow deep with a lot of the burnt sienna. And one last white mix. Okay, just finished cleaning my brush one last time. And we'll take a quick look at the colors that we were able to mix. Now, if you compare the two when it's just the pure colors, I mean, the deep color is deeper. And I think that's pretty valuable, especially with yellows, because yellows are so pale to begin with. The darkest yellows are pretty pale compared to, or they have a pretty low value compared to a lot of the other colors on the color wheel. So I think if you're just measuring it that way, going for a cad yellow deep or cad-free yellow deep might be the way to go if you're choosing just one warm yellow for your palette. And when you look at the color mixes, I mean, obviously you can't compare these exactly because I wasn't making sure to, aim for exactly the same value with everything. But between the two, they do have pretty similar mixes. I really like how this ultramarine blue with the yellow deep, I really like that color, but I mean, that version could be pretty good too. So really, I'm going to have to spend a bit more time. I've used a lot of the medium hue with my paintings. I'm going to have to spend some time using the yellow deep in my paintings and just decide. But just judging based on what I suspect will be valuable in the long run, going with the deeper color probably will be more worthwhile just because of the deeper value of the original pure color. So that's just a good view of the mixes you can get with these two colors. If you're trying to decide which color to buy, I suggest, just picking whichever one you think you'd like to go with, like the deep, and doing some paintings, or if you can afford it, get both colors and do paintings with both of them and just start comparing how they look. One of the nice things with either the hue version or the cad-free version is it is a little less expensive than an actual cadmium version. So a little less expensive, no toxicity concerns that you might have with the pure or with the true cadmiums. So going with a cad-free version or a cad hue, that's also a really good idea too, I think.